Hey guys, and welcome to another brand new video. In this video, we actually have some pretty big news when it comes over here to now that PlayStation is now being accused of some really big things of basically abusing the gaming industry and basically taking a lot of this, attention, money, and, player bases, user bases, and everything else in between from other various rival game companies. And it's kind of been going pretty big right now, where it does seem like it's turning into more of a bigger legal battle. And on top of this too, once again, we're now seeing even more big government kind of making their steps and giving their opinions when it comes to gaming as a whole. Now, this is partially because of Xbox, and as you guys know, pretty much every single major big country has to go and kind of either sign off or also, kind of think about it, discuss it, and have huge meetings about the fact if the Xbox acquisition is going to go through or not. But it's also kind of sparking up even more big controversy when it comes to, the overall gaming sphere as a whole. So we're going to talk about this, talk about some big stuff that popped up as of today, and as well some other little cool stories with Cyberpunk and some Metal Gear Solid stuff, so stay tuned for that. Make sure you guys are subscribed with the notifications on. We have the Twitter and Twitch room down below in case you guys want to follow. Amazon links too as well in case you guys also want to go and check out the consoles. And of course, give me your thoughts and comments down below. So as I mentioned, PlayStation has now been accused of abusing the games industry now with their PlayStation 5 exclusives. Now, it's a little bit more on the intriguing side or weirder side, mainly because, that's like the one thing they kind of have going for it. It's also been the kind of really big counterpoint for the Xbox, where Xbox might be just abusing the amount of money that they have from being a Microsoft subsidiary, and they could go and buy out games or Game Pass games or things even like Call of Duty, and that's kind of a big issue. But apparently PlayStation's also taking a little bit of heat right now, where PlayStation is now accused, as I mentioned, of abusing games industry with PS5 exclusives. The Romanian Competition Council is looking into titles being bound to the PlayStation Store and an inability for third-party distributors to even sell codes. Now, it's very intriguing because if you guys do or do not know, let me know if you'd ever want to actually hear this story too in the comment section or tweet at me or whatever, but my sister is actually, not as a joke, not as a bit, literally banned from the country of Romania. I wish I was joking. It's actually hilarious. If you guys ever want to go and tell that story and make it like a good, well-edited video, I gladly would, because it's just a funny time. So basically, the Romanian council is basically trying their best to go and call out Sony and PlayStation, because right now they're like, bro, what do we, we need to go and have some regulations on this. There might be some monopoly issues going on. So, basically, Xbox, as I mentioned, has been in the spotlight lately when it comes to exclusivity of their games. And I think it's kind of a big thing to kind of go and note is that, obviously, folks like the, exclusivity ideas if they have the consoles, but when it comes to big government bodies and monopolies and competition laws, they don't like that. So Xbox has been in the spotlight when it comes to exclusivity of its games, whether it's due to the severe lack of them. It's kind of been a big drama as of per recent, where people are like, hey, where are the good games? Or Redfall, you're kind of slacking. Starfield don't suck. Or PlayStation 2 as well, that it won't be allowed to actually have these games in the first place too as well for Call of Duty or other Activision games. But now PlayStation's finding up being the one being called out for exclusivity practices, as the Romanian Competition Council, or the RCC, has accused the platform, aka PlayStation's parent company, of abusing its position as pretty much a big number one console seller and basically the big market leader, and basically being like they're trying to go control the monopoly and make sure that games that either don't end up on Steam or Epic Games or Xbox or Nintendo or whatever, and they're kind of saying this is kind of a big issue and deal to go with. Just shared on Reset Era, the RCC has published a press release, which has been translated online, detailing why it believes the way PlayStation markets and sells its exclusivity games needs to be reined in. So they're basically saying that right now PlayStation is a problem, that they're basically monopolizing their own games too much. Now, in my mind, I don't think I necessarily have too many issues with this, mainly because PlayStation, that is their bread and butter. If PlayStation loses their exclusives, or imagine things like a Spider-Man, or God of War, or Horizon somehow going up on Xbox, that's pretty much the entire big legality battle that PlayStation's been doing for Call of Duty, and that makes more sense for Call of Duty because it's a third-party publisher, rather than a PlayStation studio that's been bought, developed, and funded by PlayStation itself. At that point, that's their actual money. So at this point, it almost kind of seems like there doesn't really seem like there's that much bias, because don't forget, Xbox will still have their own exclusive games. Think Halo, think Gears of War, think Forzas, or Nintendo has Zelda, which guess what? These games are just what are their unique console sellers. It's their IP, IPs and things they've fostered for many years, so it's almost kind of weird to see that something like the RCC would have an issue with this. Now, this is more of a third-party thing, so maybe a good example is maybe like a Final Fantasy 16, to not be too biased over here. I can see that being a bigger issue in terms of publishing and all those other various laws, or same thing too when it comes to, say, an Xbox. If they had a very proper exclusivity deal with, like, another third party as well, that would make sense to me. But although, if it's a normal individual, say, PlayStation Studio or Xbox Studio or Nintendo Studio, I don't think it should be a really big issue at the end of the day. So basically, they're trying to go and say that PlayStation markets and excels their exclusivity, I keep on saying exclusivity, exclusive consoles, and the biggest sticking points on PlayStation selling gamers as well through the PlayStation Store, and as well also not allowing third-party distributors to sell codes. The Competition Authority has indications that Sony may have abused its dominant position in the video game console market, both by selling online video games compatible with PlayStation consoles exclusively through the PlayStation Store platform, and by prohibiting the sale of game activation codes compatible with PlayStation consoles by competing distributors, the RCC press release reads. Now, that's kind of them more focusing more on being like, hey, there's a third party like a Green Man Gaming or G2A or other type of, like, say, maybe sales code thing, which in my mind I think seems fine, because sometimes you do also see big abuse when it comes to things in, like, countries that are not maybe like in America or like Canada, UK, whatever, where they actually sometimes buy a lot of game codes for very cheap. So think their currency is like a $10 for the value. So if people are going to buy games, they have to sell it for $10, and then people will mass go and buy these specific games. And then at that point, they'll go and resell them on console markets if they're like a global code. So they'll make $50 per code, but at the same time, and that's also less money from PlayStation's pocket, because someone's spending $10 for them to go make $60, and then PlayStation's not making that $50 cut, and so they're just losing the money, if that makes sense. So all around, so it's kind of like, I think, makes sense in why some companies are more sketchy on third-party sellers. But as well, if you have a PlayStation, then there should also be no real issue using the PlayStation Store. Now, I'm more of a bigger fan of open economies where, like, third-party sellers or Amazon's, Targets, or whatever can still get the games and sell the games, but at the same time, like, it's kind of like just a really weird legal issue with this. These practices would have reduced the purchasing options for PlayStation-compatible video games, leading to higher prices for video games for this type of console. Now, once again, if they could have, like, proper solid proof, maybe it isn't for Romania, I could be okay with that. But it just kind of seems like the standard pricing for games is slowly skewing towards $70, so it just kind of seems like that's just the standard. Now, I myself would like more competition and lower prices, so I'm not necessarily against big legal for countries calling this stuff out, but at the same time, it just kind of seems like this is the way of the normal industry, and they don't really have too much of a case. So since the only place to buy certain products is the PlayStation Store, Sony can dictate the price and can effectively charge whatever it likes without worrying about its customers looking elsewhere for a better price because, well, there is no elsewhere. Now, this is also kind of a valid concern. Now, like I said, though, in my mind, I'm kind of indifferent. Like, I do think a lot of game industry stuff, if the price is too much, well, they just probably won't buy it. And so we're not seeing like $90 games. I'm not a big fan of $70 games, but even with Nintendo getting on that track, it's kind of like one of those what can you do type of situations, which I don't like, but again, I'd be very curious to see where this case kind of goes. The RCC is serious about this too. The release goes on to inform readers it has already carried out inspections of Sony's headquarters in Europe as it attempts to determine whether PlayStation really does have an unfair stranglehold on the industry thanks to exclusivity practices. Again, while a different situation, it's somewhat ironic as PlayStation has spent the last year attempting to thwart Xbox's merger with Activision, largely signaling the fear of Call of Duty will become a console exclusive. So right now, it does kind of seem like they're still kind of getting like the big press, and they kind of put up a wormhole over right now from how Xbox is interacting. Now, I almost want to say this doesn't really seem like it holds up too well, mainly because business practices are, well, the games are expensive, but they, well, can set the price. It's their own store, and they're also not going too crazy, at least from what I've seen in America. Granted, I'd rather have $60 games still. Not a big fan of the $70 games, especially games like Redfall, but it's going to seem like that might just be a new industry standard. So PlayStation's attempting to make people think almost everything out there can only be played on its console. Reared its head again last week. Its showcase also had a bunch of different type of games. They also had to go and showcase it up on Xbox too as well. So I'm kind of curious on your thoughts on this one. It kind of just seems like they're trying to go and combat against anti-monopoly laws. I don't think they have a case, but I'm curious to go and see what they go and think. Now, some kind of fun little kind of side news too as well is that the brand new Metal Gear Solid game actually will be reusing the original game's voice lines. Intriguing enough, even though the game is quite a bit older, where Konami isn't planning to record any new dialogue for the remake too as well, and it does seem like they keep on want to stand very, very true to the initial game, which I think a lot of folks are happy with that one. And as well, there is also big news where Cyberpunk's director and other Project Red homies make a brand new studio called Blank, where I'm not really sure, oh my good lordy lord, don't mind the camera on this one, I look like a ghost. Basically, the team is looking to staff up to 60 members and has a pretty big brand new game on the way over here, so it's always intriguing to go and see on how this will go and play on out. I always love having a chance to see brand new studios and all these things kind of play on out too as well, and of course, if anyone has a lot of experience, they usually do get good funding, which means a lot of good games in the future. So I appreciate you guys all so much for watching. Give me your thoughts and comments down below. Subscribe if you guys are new, and Amazon links as well, and of course, the Twitter and Twitch room down below if you guys want to follow, and I love you guys all so much for watching.